Hello, everybody, and welcome to Awesome Comics, your one-stop shop for everything comic book entertainment. I am your host, Walter Benasiak, and it's the last day at school, everybody. Teardrop dweep. This is all tears, not water this time. What's up, everybody? We're going to be talking about Logan today, and if it's the best X-Men movie. There's a decent amount of X-Men movies out there now, and I think this is a strong addition to that. But we're going to hear what you guys think about this. So, Porter, what's going on, man? How are you?
What's up? How you doing?
You feeling good?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Ready to talk about this?
Yes.
I know you had strong opinions going in.
I did indeed.
We're gonna get into that. Heather Roos, how you doing?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm great.
You're great?
Yeah.
Ready to talk about this?
Yes.
All right.
So ready.
Okay, the hype is building. Ayanna Wade, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm great. I'm ready to go. Let's get to it.
Okay, cool. Let's just
Shut
do
it
it.
down.
So excited.
All right, Trevor Mueller, how's it going, buddy?
Good. Thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Trevor, you are going to be talking a little bit about the Kickstarter for your Albert the Alien series.
Yeah.
Do you want to mention a little bit about that at
Sure.
the beginning here?
So we're doing a Kickstarter to fund my next graphic novel right now called Albert the Alien, about the first foreign exchange student from outer space. Very different from Logan as a concept, but it actually ends on March 14th, and we've actually got a couple of Channel Awesome related rewards that are available on there as well. So please go check it out on the last couple of days of the campaign.
All right, cool. And we'll get more information about that at the end of the episode. As always, I want to remind you guys to like the Facebook page, facebook.com/awesomecomicshow. So this will be the last Awesome Comics, but we will still be putting up Facebook exclusives going into what we're going to be doing later, which we'll talk about later in this episode. So let's just dive into Logan here, folks. No spoilers first, just in case you haven't seen it. I know it's been a week, and we did film this before, so it's like a deja vu here. Sorry about that, by the way.
Technical difficulty.
Yeah, technical difficulties with that last episode, but we're here again to talk about Logan. So, spoiler-free thoughts, just in case. Heather, what did you think of Logan?
I liked it a lot. Dare I say I loved it. I just thought it was a really great character piece that explored Logan and Professor X's characters very well. I felt like it had the characters grow a lot while also having a lot of really awesome action. You know, it was rated R, so we finally get some of the amazing claw fights that we all knew we could have in a Wolverine movie. So I loved it.
All right, we'll go to Trevor next. What did you think overall?
Yeah, so my opinion really hasn't changed all that much in the last week or so, right? Like, I really enjoyed the movie, and I probably enjoyed it for reasons that people are maybe starting to get sunk in after it's been out for a little bit, right? So it's the fact that, unlike other X-Men movies, this movie wasn't trying to throw as many mutants on the screen as possible, but instead allowed us to focus on an intimate group and the relationships that they have with each other. And I think that's where the movie has its heart in a lot of places. And yes, they still intermix that with a lot of the action and stuff that Heather is talking about, which made it very entertaining. But it was really nice from my perspective to actually see them get to focus on character for a change and the relationships that these characters have with each other, especially since it's kind of a legacy movie and that it's Hugh Jackman's last film as this character. So.
Right. Ayanna, overall opinion, no spoilers?
I loved it. I think the point that I made last time that I will again make this time is that if you are one of those people that has that superhero movie fatigue, because we've gotten so many over the last few years, and some of them have been real hits, and some of them have just been real misses, and so it's a lot to ask you to go see another superhero movie. But I think, honestly, this was a good film, even from like a indie drama feel.
Yeah.
It really is a good film with real character-driven things, like you both said, and it's just worth seeing, especially if you love these characters, because it's sort of refreshing to be able to see them at their height, basically. And it's sort of like a Western, bit of a Western feel to it, too.
Yeah, that was definitely deliberately in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they made references to Shane in it and had some lines and footage from that as well. So it's cool to see Logan as this like gunslinger type of character. So yeah,
Absolutely agree with that.
No name.
And it's definitely nice because you don't have to see all the other X-Men movies to understand what's happening in this.
You're right.
So if you haven't seen any of the other X-Men movies, don't not see this. You don't have to have the background knowledge.
It almost might be better that you haven't seen that stuff, you know what I mean? Because some of the stuff has been hit and miss, but it's like, I think if you have a general knowledge, even if you're not a superhero movie fan, if you have a general knowledge that Hugh Jackman was Wolverine for a long time, and you know this is his last one, you're like, let's check it out for curiosity's sake. I'm not a superhero movie fan, but seeing it this way, I think just Logan alone probably stands really well, I think.
So I'm going to disagree with that one slightly and trying to not get into spoilers here. I think one of the reasons why the movie is so special is because you've seen that relationship between Hugh Jackman's version of Wolverine and Patrick Stewart's version of Xavier throughout the years, and the struggle that Xavier's had to try to help Wolverine cope and become the person that he is. And the challenge that a lot of those movies has faced is that Wolverine's journey is always going from being this animalistic, out-of-control individual to being somebody who's at least halfway decent, right? And we got this really nice period at the end of the sentence, at the end of Days of Future Past, where Wolverine was kind of a whole person, and he was now a professor at the university and stuff like that. And this movie, I don't know if it takes place in that timeline or if it takes place in a different timeline, right?
Almost doesn't matter.
It doesn't. But the relationship between those two characters, I think, really plays into a lot of the scenes that you get here, and Xavier being kind of that father figure to Wolverine, and the way that they play out a lot of those scenes, I think, is at least influenced if you've seen at least one of the previous X-Men movies.
It's the payoff at the end of all of these, honestly. It's their big payoff of being able to cash in on all the other things that they've made to be like, and there you go.
Right. But like we're saying, for people who aren't like superhero movie fans, I think they'll enjoy this and can enjoy it on their own, just this alone.
True.
Porter's opinions, no spoilers. You did not want this movie to be good.
I didn't want it to be
Did
good. I didn't want it to be made.
You didn't want it to be.
I didn't want it to be at all. When the rumors about like doing Old Man Logan, I lost my shit, and I was like, if they do it, swear to God, I'm done. Like, you can't do that movie. It's impossible. And then I saw this like, oh, Logan, and he's old, and it's set in like the desert, and it's like, I'm gonna kill someone.
First trailer was great. He hated it.
I
It was great.
I didn't hate the trailer specifically. I hated the movie, so the trailer did nothing for me.
Okay.
And I didn't want to see it. And even when we were sitting there in the theater, I said to Walter, I was just like, I don't want to see this.
Like
movie.
right before the movie starts, too. He's like, this is gonna be terrible.
This is gonna be shit.
Just watch the movie and we'll see what happens.
And I was so incredibly wrong. It was such a good movie.
Yeah.
I was blown away at how good it was. I was ready to just nitpick every single little thing throughout the entire movie. And about halfway through, I'm like, I haven't gotten anything I didn't like yet. What is happening?
This is very strange.
Yeah, it's just everything worked so well for this movie, and the way that they set it in the universe, and it's a little ambiguous on the timeline, and you could be in the original X-Men 2000 timeline, you could be in the Days of Future Past First Class timeline, or a little bit of both. But you don't really need it, but you just, like you said with the relationship with Patrick Stewart.
Sure.
There's a lot of character moments with there, a lot of heart to this movie, and it was just it felt, you could feel the heart and the
It's very sincere. I think.
sincere, and the weight of the character.
Definitely.
And just what he was going through, and then the fact that it was rated R was awesome.
That helped.
A lot of brutality, which is the Wolverine we should have seen years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
And I thought that worked in favor of the movie. They didn't put it in there just because, well, screw it, we'll just do R and we'll just cut arms off, and it worked for the characters. I mean, X-23 is practically feral. Like, I mean, she's. She was amazing, obviously.
So good.
Yeah.
Like,
Daphne Keane.
Fantastic.
So good.
Yeah,
Her like little
a real
brow.
standout in here.
yeah.
I've never seen a little girl or boy, for that matter, I can't even do that, like that legit, like furrowed brow thing, that snarl she's got going.
And it was awesome.
good.
The brutality worked for the story. It wasn't in there just for excessive violence like we see people complain about so often nowadays. And it just worked so well. Everything about the movie worked. And yes, you might say there's some continuity errors or some glaring plot holes, but it's like they don't need all these answers. Like the James Mangold said, like, I feel like as a society we need every single question explained to us by the end of the film. And he's like, I don't feel we need that in movies in general, but specifically this movie. We don't need everything to be answered. So there are going to be questions, and I'm not going to give you the answers, and that's that.
That's fine.
And it's like,
If the movie is strong enough on its own, where those questions, aren't essential to what we're seeing. Like, you know, we get that we're in like the future. We get that certain things have happened. We don't exactly need to know, you know, specifically what happened beat by beat, you know, to understand the story. The story was about the characters,
Right.
and we knew the characters going in for the most part. So
I mean,
we didn't really need everything answered.
Yeah, continuity-wise, I mean, the series has been messed up for quite some time because Charles
All
Xavier
over the
died
place.
at the end of X-Men 3,
Right.
but then the universe got rebooted, and
Right.
you know, and at
Time
the end of
travel.
Wolverine 2, he's got bone claws again,
Yeah.
but then that never got addressed. But one of the things that I really liked about it, and I think kind of helps your guys' argument about how this is a great movie for people to kind of come in when they've got superhero burnout, is that it is a genre bending movie, right? It's kind of like Winter Soldier wasn't a
Yes.
superhero movie, it was a spy thriller, right? This movie isn't the over-the-top spectacle superhero film that we're used to seeing where Wolverine's slashing dudes and they're just falling, right? Like, this is an emotional, impacted movie that has a lot of weight in the Western genre and in the journey that these characters are taking, which I think makes it a very poignant film and a movie that allows people to resonate with these characters in a way that we haven't had a chance to do in any previous X-Men movie,
Right.
which is really, I think, one of the things that makes this movie so special.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
The other point that I'll make too, and this is on the R rating piece, because we touched on this the last time that we talked, is I liked that James Mangold kind of alludes to the fact that the X-Men movies that we've seen before might have been a piece of fiction,
Yes.
right? Where Wolverine sits there and
Comic books.
says, the
Yeah.
comic books exist, some of those stories might have happened, most of it probably didn't, and certainly not in the way that they put it in there, right?
Right.
And that allows me to kind of separate this movie out as, for lack of a better term, kind of an Elseworld story or kind of a one-off story, right?
Right.
Where Wolverine lives in this gritty reality that we haven't seen before, but this is what being a mutant is really like in the world, right? And then the previous movies are all about like the showmanship and the spectacle of the fantasy of the comic book world. And I liked that aspect of it more than I thought I would.
Sure.
It really
Yeah.
allows you to suspend your disbelief in the world that they created, which they did a great job of creating the world.
Oh yeah.
It's
Well, and
very
explaining
grounded.
why Xavier is dropping F-bombs.
Right, exactly.
I think, yeah, Logan just like dropping F-bombs at the beginning of the movie, like every other word is the F word, so. but it made it feel more grounded. Like I said, I mean, people talk like that. Logan would absolutely talk like
Absolutely.
that.
Right.
He has talked
With
like that.
everything
in
that
movies.
he's gone
Right.
through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's get to the matter at hand here now, shall we? Is this the best X-Men movie? Ayana, what do you think?
I mean, are we in spoilers now? Or
We're in
not
spoilers. Spoiler warning.
Spoiler warning.
Is this the best X-Men movie? They've had time to turn off the thing now.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Bye. Hi. Yes.
Bye.
Yes, absolutely. And like I said, it's less of what the other X-Men movies are. So it's difficult to say because what I ultimately like about it makes it less of an X-Men movie, if that makes sense. So
'Cause
it's
there's less
really
characters and everything.
unfair of me to say that it's the best because the things that I like about it isn't a whole hodgepodge of like random characters for like, fan service, you know what I
Right.
mean? But because of that, it's a really successful film in that it's really enjoyable to watch and like make you think while you're watching it.
Right.
It's a real gut punch in some places where you care about these characters, and as someone who did see the X-Men movies, like I cared about these characters for a while now, and so to see them,
Decade and a half.
Yeah.
it's rough.
So
Yeah.
you're saying yes.
I'm saying yes.
Okay, with the caveat that, it doesn't feature all of the usual X-Men
Right.
characters, but still.
Right.
It's got enough, I think, in there to still be considered an X-Men movie. Heather, what do you think? Is it the best X-Men movie?
Well, the funny thing is I'm very much on the same page as Ayana with this. Because when we first had this discussion, sorry everyone, one of the
Make apology, Laura.
things that we had said is not counting Deadpool, because
Right.
Deadpool's just so different.
Right.
But the same thing could be said for this movie as well. It's
Yeah.
just so different. And like Ayana was saying, X-Men in and of itself is an ensemble cast. That's the nature of the X-Men group. So it was nice to be able to step away from that focus on the ensemble to the focus of just a couple of characters. And because of that, it was a really well done film, exactly like what Ayana was just saying. And I think it definitely helped that the acting in this movie was just phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
My gosh, Patrick Stewart is a treasure.
Yeah.
Instead of
Oh my
throwing a bunch of
goodness.
faces in there, like we can sell this movie because they'll recognize this guy,
Right.
or
Here's
like
Gambit.
she was in
Right.
whatever. We
Here's
need
Jennifer
to
Lawrence.
see, we need to see her barely like clothed, that'll
Right.
sell some tickets. This isn't that. They got a powerhouse of a cast.
Right, but it was
And-
already the players that they had.
Exactly.
And they let them really act.
But like
And
Caliban,
really
we didn't
focus.
already
Caliban we
have.
didn't
and
have
That's
yet,
true.
and
He was
X-23.
great. Oh my
Incredible.
gosh, and Daphne
And
Keane
Daphne
was
Keane
just
also-
fantastic.
I mean, it's like this is Hugh Jackman's last Wolverine movie, but did she kind of outshine him? Because I feel like in a couple scenes,
I
like
don't know.
she's more
See-
she's not more the focus, but she is just you can't take your eyes off her.
You can't, but
Well,
I was
it's
blown
almost
away.
the passing of the torch.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
true.
I would say, rather than saying she was better than him, I would say it is definitely the like passing on to the next.
Right. But was
you
she
know.
so good that it's like distracting a little bit? I've
it
had a
distracting?
week.
No, you
I've had a
can't
week
look
to think
away from
about it.
her. She's
Right, that's what I'm
amazing.
saying. That's what I'm saying. But so is she like too good? You know
No.
what I mean?
I almost felt like Patrick Stewart stole the show for me.
I think so.
I don't
Everybody's
know.
just on
Everyone
that
was
heightened
just-
level, and Hugh Jackman
Right.
too is freaking phenomenal.
Well,
Right.
it was an
Yeah.
opportunity for them to bring their A game less in the physicality as they have in the previous X-Men and Wolverine movies, and more so in the acting space. Because
Yeah.
again, there's less of the ensemble for them to compete with. There's less of the set piece action scenes
Yeah.
that they have to participate in, and it's more of an opportunity to actually focus on these characters in the world that they've created and see how they would survive. And it is very much this family movie, right?
Yeah.
Like in that it is a movie about a family that has fallen apart, that has failed. And it exists in a world where Xavier has failed so completely that he's actually responsible for the death of many of, if not all of, the Xavier students, right? And to me, that creates this unique tragedy that kind of mirrors or juxtaposes, I guess, against the Old Man Logan storyline, which if you guys have read it, right, it's Wolverine has done something so terrible that he won't take the claws out. And this is Xavier having done something so terrible, but it's because he was out of control, right? As he's gotten older, the most powerful mutant in the world has become a weapon of mass destruction. And they can keep it in check, but because he's old and stubborn, he won't, right?
Right.
And then he keeps forgetting what he's done. And it's
Yeah.
those moments of clarity that he gets in the movie that make him a very tragic character in a way that we've never seen
Yeah.
any other character be in the X-Men franchise.
Right. I think what makes it great too, or gives the actors room to be so great, is that we get to see the vulnerability
Totally.
in every character, and you don't often see that in superhero movies.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
yes, you get like what their weakness is,
Yes.
but that's different than having the raw vulnerability that we see
Emotional
sometimes
vulnerability.
out of Patrick Stewart and Daphne Keane, even
Yeah.
sometimes where it's just that moment, because we're talking spoilers,
Yeah.
that moment
Yeah.
right before Charles Xavier dies, and he has that moment of clarity
Yeah.
where he remembers what he's done, and he's
Yeah.
talking about it and just almost sobbing, and turns around and there's Logan to kill. I mean, it's not Logan, it's X-24.
Right.
Hey. You know, it was
But
just
someone
But
who looks like
great
Logan.
But
Well-
that's also juxtaposed with the fact that he just had the perfect day, right?
Right.
And so there's like
Exactly.
this layer of tragedy on top of this moment of happiness. And the layers that he can bring to the character is something that he's always been able to do, but the
Exactly.
writing's never allowed him to do.
There's a
Right.
breathability of being able to like wallow in those feelings together on screen and with like as little words as needed, just so you can breathe and live in it as the audience's hearts break.
I love how when Logan comes back and he goes upstairs to see Xavier stabbed or whatever. He picks him up and the first thing he says is, "I didn't do this.
It wasn't
I
me.
didn't- I did. It wasn't me."
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, oh no.
The theme of the movie is so strongly grounded in family, right? And we talk about the moments with X-23 and stuff where Vegas, right, where Xavier's having his seizure and Wolverine is the only one that can get to him. But X-23, who has similar powers, is also trying to save Xavier, right? And so as Wolverine is killing these soldiers that are about to shoot Xavier, and then the two of them are working together to get him the shot, to get him to stop having this seizure. It's like this first moment where they start to work in unison as a family. And after that moment is when we start to get all these family moments in the car, at the dinner table, right? That really allows this connection with the characters. And the movie's been out for a while now, so I've been watching a lot of the interviews and stuff with the actors, and they talk about how the entire dinner scene where they're talking to the family about Xavier having been a professor, that entire scene was improv. The reason being is that the scripted version of them doing it just felt very forced. And so the director basically said, tell them that you're a teacher, but you don't want to let them slip that you were a mutant teacher, right? And so they have this awkward conversation that's going around that creates this sense that you never would have gotten out of a scripted moment.
Felt very realistic.
It did.
Yeah. So were you sorry, but
Go ahead.
I would say, were you in agreement that this is the best X-Men movie?
So I'm sticking to the thing that I said originally, and I alluded to it earlier in this video. Yes, in that you have to have seen some, at least, of the previous X-Men movies for it to be that, right? Sure. Again, it's a very different kind of genre, and it allows the intimacy to focus on the core set of characters that I think really plays to the strengths of the movie. But if you don't have the background as to who these characters are and the relationships they are, the emotional resonance is probably going to be less than it would be, and the movie probably won't mean as much to you as it does to, I think, all of us sitting at the table.
Sure.
So yes, with an asterisk.
Right. Okay. And Porter?
Yeah, I agree also because like this movie affected me emotionally more than any other X-Men film ever did. I mean, the one that came moderately close to this was Days of Future Past. When when you see all the X-Men in the future getting killed, and it's like, oh my God, all these characters that I've known for a while are dying, but we know it's not going to happen. But still, it was like, oh wow, but this was brutal, like tear-inducing, ugly crying.
I can vouch for that. I saw him.
It's just it was super hard to watch, especially after these amazing character moments, and then this stuff happens right away. And it's like, oh my God, this is hard to watch.
Yeah.
And you get to just think like I'm seeing the end of something I started 17 years ago.
Right.
And that's half my life.
Right.
And oh my God, this is crazy. I never thought I'd see this. And and since I didn't expect anything from this movie,
your expectations were negative. They were
I
below
had negative
zero.
expectations.
You went from one end of the spectrum to the other.
Yeah, to go all the way up to the top, I was blown away just by how good everything was, and it was just. I expected to hate the movie and not have any emotional connection except for hatred. And then I just had this huge surge of sadness and remorse for these characters, and it's like, oh my God.
So this Darth Vader to you, basically.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, I think it was definitely the best movie because I was so connected to it emotionally more than any of the other movies.
All right, this was your Luke. I get it. Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with you guys. I mean, the more I think about the other X-Men movies, I'm not a huge X-Men fan. I mean, I'm familiar enough with them, and I love Old Man Logan is my favorite X-Men story. So I was excited for this going in that they were going to take some stuff from that. But this just because I think, like Heather was saying, that it's so focused on just a few characters, and specifically, obviously, Wolverine, that we got those little moments that we could never have gotten in the bigger X-Men movies because they're constantly, like in X-Men Apocalypse, when they're throwing fire and Cyclops beams and a million things at them at the same time at Apocalypse. There's just no room for those character moments, and I'm a big fan of small character movies. Hugh Jackman was saying in one of the interviews that I saw about how he wanted to kind of reflect sort of what like The Wrestler was sort of in this, and you could totally see that. The Wrestler, the Darren Aronofsky movie, which is a very singular story about a guy who's past his prime, and it's basically that same kind of thing. It even has a daughter in The Wrestler, and X-23 is in this, and sort of has a similar type thing. So I'm a big fan of those smaller moments. I think it makes them human, and if you get more of that in there in the other X-Men movies, I mean, there's not a lot of room for it, but it would be nice to see, maybe going forward they'll adapt this kind of thing in the X-Men movies that are going to be coming out later, at least in a smaller sense. You obviously can't dedicate as much time, but maybe they'll see that, we need some more connectivity to the emotion of these characters.
Well, see.
I'm
I
really
we'll see
hoping.
what
That'd be
happens.
great.
I mean, the fear that I had when this movie was first announced as an R-rated movie before we knew anything about it was, Deadpool was an R-rated movie,
Yes.
and they've taken all the wrong parts of what made that movie work and have decided to transfer it over to this movie. Thankfully, that was not the case, and
Right.
I was proven wrong in that. But again, the same fear exists in me that Hollywood is going to misinterpret what was working for this movie for audiences and what was not, and they're going to take the elements that didn't work and try to apply it to a future X-Men movie, X-Men rated R, right? And I'm like, that's not what worked for this movie. What worked for this movie were the smaller character moments. Yes, you have a character who can be more gritty and violent, right? But you're not going to do that with Storm and Cyclops and Jean Grey.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
very different.
Right.
I mean, and I hope that it doesn't. I mean, it's going to, I'm sure, because
Right.
Deadpool is a success, because this was a success. They're going to push more R-rated movies, and I'm pretty sure DC is going to start trying to do that.
Well,
Yeah.
Killing Joke.
Right,
So
but
Well,
how
yeah,
about
but
that?
but that
That's
wasn't
not a
rated R cut of
blockbuster.
right.
Yeah.
That
whatever
wasn't like
Superman.
it wasn't meant to be a theatrical release. So
Right.
I'm talking about their live action movies and
Right.
everything. Did you guys hear about Wonder Woman is going to be the 2009 animated Wonder Woman is going to have an R-rated release now?
What?
Yeah,
I
did
heard
not hear
that.
I think
No.
that's a direct response to this. So that's very
Well,
And
strange.
that's why I
Nope.
said that
It's a
with
Killing Joke.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I bring it up. Is I
Right.
know it's not a blockbuster, but it's that
It can expand out.
attitude of- exactly.
Warner Brothers
those
wants
other
to
properties.
distinguish themselves from the Marvel movies by going darker, grittier, more adult, and that doesn't work, right?
Right.
You've got characters that are existing in primary colors, you know, that are supposed to be these beacons of light and hope. And for me, a lot of the Warner Brothers movies, the reason that Batman v Superman didn't work for me, the reason Man of Steel didn't work for me, is because there's a fundamental lack of understanding of who that character was. Juxtapose that against Logan, where there's a fundamental understanding of who
Yes.
those characters are and an
Right.
opportunity for those actors to portray those characters the way that they would have naturally progressed over the period of time and in the world that they've kind of built up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that is playing to the strengths of the actors, to the characters, to the universe that you've created, versus what Warner Brothers has been doing, which is the opposite.
Right. Bottom line is, I hope that what's at least something that's taken out of this, besides the R rating, is that people want to see these characters humanized more, and we want to connect with them. You know what I mean? And you can connect with Superman. I mean, everyone talks about how Superman is this god that no one can touch him. He's so above us. But there are connectable aspects to his personality that we could see more of. I think at least they tried that a little bit in Man of Steel, but we could see that more in a relatable way, in a better quality way, I think. So hopefully they take that from Logan. Logan's an important movie, I think, going forward for superhero movies.
I would almost use the first scene in the movie as an example of why the R rating works and why we should see the claws come out and just see him butcher people. Is because he's not just going around and murdering people. That does nothing for me. I mean, yes, it was cool to see him kill people, but why it was cool was because he was in his limo and that was being torn apart, and then he had to get out and say, "This is a lease. I have to keep this like no bullet holes. Can't have any of this." And him trying to just play keep away with them and the car.
And they
That's
automatically
what
shoot
was
him.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
he's like, okay, well, they just tried to kill me, so I might as well chop
They
off some
escalated
head.
it.
It's that
Here it
trying to
goes.
be the bigger person and trying to yeah.
And it's funny because you juxtapose that against his first appearance in the original X-Men movie. Wolverine wants so desperately to be a pacifist, but he has the rage inside of him, and he's got this animalistic instinct that allows him to not happen, allows that to not happen, and people just won't leave him alone.
Right.
Right? And that's an important scene, in the scene where
Poking the
he's
bear.
doing the cage fight, and then later on he's drinking, and the guy is pestering him, and he won't leave him alone, and that's when the claws come out, right? The exact same thing happens in the beginning of this movie.
And that's what's interesting about this character. It's not the him killing people. It's why he has to. It's
Right.
because they won't just leave him alone.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, very quickly, I don't want this to go too long, but any big issues you guys had with the movie at all? Trevor, I know you had a couple. You want to start with
I
you?
did, and of course I had all of these memorized when we did this the last time. I'll see if I can remember them all, but maybe you guys can help me out with them. So, 4 kind of issues that I had with this movie. The first one was the X-24 character, right? So, in the comic books, X-23 exists because they tried to clone Wolverine, and tried 22 times, it completely failed, changed one chromosome to female, and accidentally got successful, right? And Laura was born. In this movie, they're trying to create a plethora of different mutants. They create a female Wolverine clone, and then for some reason, the very next clone is a male Wolverine, and also we're going to age it because, you know, whatever failed with the young kids, right? So the only reason I feel like X-24 even exists in this movie is to have the literal symbolism of Wolverine fighting himself, which is really what he's kind of been doing for the last 17 years anyway.
Yeah.
Which I appreciated, the visual aspect of that, but I really was like, could you not have thrown another Wolverine rogue in here? Could we not have gotten, somebody else to try to do this and still get the same kind of emotional story?
You get it for two reasons. There's him fighting himself, which is really cool to see. Do not get me wrong. Real cool to see young Logan versus old Logan. And you're like, yeah, that's right. And he's still keeping up with it. Sort of. Not really. Kind of getting his ass kicked. And then also because there's that moment with Professor X when he's killed and you're trying to like backpedal in your brain like, no, it's a dream. No, it's not happening. No, why is he killing him? Oh my God, it's not him. Wait, it's him. Wait, it's him.
And I agree with those 2 points. At the same time, the comic book nerd in me really would have wanted like an Omega Red in this movie or something like that.
Yeah.
Just switch it up a little bit.
Little bit, right? Like, and also, but the existence of X-24 kind of takes away from the importance of the existence of X-23, right? She exists as the only successful clone of Wolverine. If you've got another clone that's out there that potentially is new, improved, better, stronger, faster, more rage, whatever, like then what is her purpose? Have you diminished her purpose at all in there? And I didn't like that existence piece that was there.
Will they age him too? So like, is
he's
he then
he's younger, but he's older.
He's younger, but he's older. He's like his son then. Why don't we discuss the fact that that's his son? Because there's such a poignant moment of the nurse doing her confessional of being like, I told you that's my daughter. It's not my daughter, but here's the thing. She may not be my child, but I love her. You may not love her, but she is your child.
X-24 takes away from the theme of family.
Yeah.
And in that, it exists simply as a plot device to have action sequences of Wolverine fighting somebody else who's on physicality with him.
Yes.
Well, I see that it services that aspect and that need for some bad guy, but I don't think it takes away from the family of the characters. I mean, I feel like it adds to it because of Logan seeing him X-24 taking away X-23, and then he tries, and he's like getting his ass kicked, but he's still like trying to fight. And then later on, you see Logan getting his ass kicked again, like really bad, and X-23 absolutely loses her shit and goes berserk mode on X-24.
That was awesome.
Who was a full-grown, fully powered Wolverine, and she's demolishing him, and she's this tiny ass little girl who's annihilating the crap out of him because he was hurting Wolverine, and it was just like, I felt like it added more to the family.
Well, but so her defense of Wolverine adds more to the family.
Right.
The fact that X-24 exists does not. You could have swapped that out for any other character. The justification that I have in my head, and I don't even know if the creators went this far, right, is that Wolverine is the character that we got. X-24 is the character that he could have become had he stayed in the Weapon X program, right? And so to there you get a little bit of a juxtaposition, but again, it doesn't reflect in the themes that they're kind of going for in the movie, and I felt like it was just unnecessary, right? Like, is all I'm getting at. I'm not saying it wasn't badass, right?
Absolutely.
Like, it was one of the things where I was like, really, that was who you were going to go with for your final battle, like that? Okay. So I had a slight issue with that.
I feel like the movie does try to justify itself in that they do show you like them growing the pieces of him and kind of saying that this is the next natural progression because we tried with the children hoping that the children would basically become soulless killing machines and they have not. So we will create a soulless killing machine by literally piecing him together bit by bit, which I think they do that to try to take away the humanity of the character to lessen the impact on the family.
But it
does still have that inherent issue.
But if you can make an army of male soulless killing machines that are all modeled on Wolverine and all have the exact same healing factor and adamantium, then why haven't you done that? You've
I think they
created
just
one.
figured that
Yeah.
out, I thought.
Yeah,
I
they
thought
hadn't just
said,
figured
we
it out.
just
But they have the
From the
technology to
children.
keep doing it, right?
Right.
Versus
Well,
in the
then they-
comic books with X-23, where she was a happy accident that kind of happened, and suddenly she becomes that much more important to the organization because they need her to figure out how to do it again.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's only been like a couple weeks since that nurse like kidnapped, or not kidnapped, but took X-23 from that facility and everything. So I don't think they've had time to make more X-24s or whatever you want to
Right,
say.
but the point is that they can.
Right. They don't
can.
need that
They know
scientist
how.
to do it. I'm sure it's an automated process at this point because they've done
They have
it
the
twice.
research.
Right,
at
so
this
maybe
point.
we'll see them more of those clones in the future in future X-Men movies with these kids. I don't know what they're gonna. I don't know. Fox is so weird. Okay, can we just be
Yeah.
honest about this?
Yeah.
Fox sometimes just doesn't get it. Like Fox, for years they just did not understand the basics of. Like trying to make a decent superhero movie, even though people like the first two X-Men movies, I think that they lost their way because number one, we got better quality superhero movies that have come out since then, and number two, they just like I don't know if people were going in and out of power in that now, but it just seems like now we're at a point where they kind of get it with Days of Future Past. But then we go to X-Men Apocalypse, and it's like, and then Logan's
down.
like, whoa, like, what are we doing here? Like, can we let's get some quality control over there at Fox, because Marvel's not gonna get these characters back, Marvel Studios, anytime soon now, especially with the success of Deadpool and this, no way.
Yeah.
We were hoping maybe with like, pre-Days of Future Past, like, oh, maybe we're gonna get this, and then now it's like, these are successful movies now.
It's a super successful franchise for Fox
Yeah.
in and outside of the movies, right?
Right.
Because they've got
Yeah.
the animated series, they've got the video game tie-ins.
Right. I mean, then you can talk about what Sony did and everything, and
But
whether or
Spider-Man
not-
was a dwindling franchise at Sony, so there's a very different thing there, right? The Andrew Garfield movies were not doing as well; they were going down in terms of box office takeaway. So
Sure.
Sony needed to revitalize that character in some way. And Marvel just took advantage of that partnership and opportunity. Versus Fox, who has, even if the movies don't do as well with X-Men, the cartoons are doing great, the toys are selling well, they're making money hand over
I
fist.
know. It's so frustrating because you want to see the X-Men where they belong, but it's like.
Hugh Jackman said he'd come back if
He
he
said
could
he
be
would
in the
come back.
Avengers.
Right. It's just Fox and Marvel have a long history of trying to get rights to characters and everything. So it's like that's probably not going to happen anytime soon,
Right.
unfortunately. But
But this though,
right. Any other quick flaws you had with it? I think you were talking about the food, putting the
Yeah.
wiping
So
out the mutants.
the throwaway line about how mutants don't exist anymore because they've augmented the food, to me just threw a whole bunch of unnecessary plot holes into the thing. Because I was like, well, wait a minute, does that kill out the younger generation and stop mutants from being born, or does that weed out the current generation of mutants and suddenly they're losing their powers? Because if the second one, why are Xavier and Wolverine not affected by this? If the first one, mutants still wouldn't have been completely wiped out in Xavier's lifetime. This
because
is how my
Wolverine
brain works.
only consumes cigars, obviously.
Right, but he
And
lives,
whiskey.
he
Right,
lives
you're
on
right.
yeah.
But we
Well,
did see X-23 eating the
cereal, right?
So,
So she's
would that
getting-
not have corn syrup in it?
Would that not have taken away her
High
powers?
fructose corn syrup. Come on.
true.
What do you
Yeah.
think
So-
it's made of?
True.
Little nitpicky thing, right? Because it's just a throwaway line that exists in the movie, but it was one of the things that took me out of it for a moment. I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't jive with me.
Right.
Well,
The
you
o-
did like the bullet, right?
So before we get to that
Yeah.
one, so the adamantium poisoning,
Yes.
reducing Wolverine's mutant healing factor made no sense to me at all. And again, they're trying to humanize the character and make him less immortal. And they're trying to take an aspect from the Death of Wolverine comic book series that basically his mutant healing factor's gone down and now he is capable of being killed. But in that comic book series, they used a nanovirus. In this movie, they're just like, oh, the adamantium that has made him so strong is what is killing him. But I'm like, all right, that means that X-23 is going to get poisoned and die. That means that X-24 is going to get poisoned and die, assuming, he survives the bullet at the end of the thing, and then any future clones are all going to get poisoned and die. So what's the purpose of the adamantium all along and them trying to recreate this project?
Well, I think that, like we talked about last time, is that he's so old in this. He's like almost 200 years old that his just naturally his healing factor has degraded,
Right.
and now the adamantium is affecting him more. because the only reason that was in his that he could survive that is because he had a healing factor. So it's a combination of those two things, I think.
But I
So
think
didn't
like
have a
what we're
problem
doing
with it.
there is we're rationalizing
Yes.
something that wasn't explained in the movie. The
But
way
like
that
we were saying, we don't need
Yeah.
everything
Right.
no.
explained.
Again, it
you
was,
know.
it was a nitpicky little bit, right?
Sure,
like
sure.
was what I had, and then the final one was the adamantium bullet, right? Which was a horrible idea in the original X-Men Origins
This is the
Wolverine
best one. What are you
movie.
talking about?
So
Number one.
why is it suddenly an okay idea in this movie? And I almost feel like it was a studio decision to be like, guys, we totally need to like make this work. It was a great idea then. Let's make it a great idea again. And no, like it
Of
was
all the continuity to keep, that's the one we kept.
right.
Right.
Like, and in that movie, all it did was frickin' give him amnesia. But
Right.
because we've made it a hollow point, now it can frickin', the strongest metal on the earth can destroy 2 layers of the strongest metal on earth. Okay, I guess.
Which is one thing if your healing factor has been damaged, but it's another if you're younger, stronger, faster, better, and then
and also have an injection of whatever that
yeah,
Yeah,
Berserker,
right.
liquid
Right.
healing
serum,
factor in
yeah.
a syringe.
Yeah.
So that part for me again, I was as soon as the bullet showed up, I was like, no.
I mean, as soon as
Yeah.
it showed up, you kind of figured where it was going.
Right.
But yeah, it seems like you got to be able to figure out the exact perfect location to shoot it for that to work, because what if it goes through? Then does it still
I mean, I
work,
guess
or do you
here,
have to
right,
implant?
in the
Does it have
eye.
to implant and then poison from within?
Into
It
the
was a
orbital
little crazy.
socket,
Right.
through the
But-
brain stem, possibly.
Yeah.
There's places.
So some of those I realized totally nitpicky and
Yeah.
little
Right,
bits,
right.
but they were little things that I kind of noticed on my first viewing that took me out of the moment.
I did quickly want to say that I loved the world building in this.
Yes.
We talked about this before, is that it's set in the future, 2029, we said, right?
Yeah, 90.
And so a lot of times when we watch movies set in the future, it's like the distant future where we have hover cars or like, all these cool things. And I think the highest technology we had was like a cool limo that had like a flat grill
Or the self-driving
or
cars.
the self-driving truck
Yep.
that was like just like taking things from point A to point B that weren't actually being driven by anyone, which was
Which
cool.
is also
But you still
technology
have
we
to.
have today,
but
too.
you still have to get out and go fix your sub pump,
Yep.
or
Right.
like
Yeah.
you still have to go out and do these things like manually, which I appreciate that it's yes, it's set in the future. It felt really realistic. It felt very much like it's our current darkest timeline.
The piece that we talked about last time and we didn't mention in this video is that it's not a post-apocalyptic future; it's a dystopian,
It's a dystopian,
future,
correct? Yeah.
right? And it's a world in which, again, all mutants have kind of been wiped from the face of the planet, but technology's continued to evolve. Not so much that everything has changed, right?
Yeah.
But little aspects that are subtle and noticeable, and kind of you sit there and you notice it, and you're like, oh, the future, haha.
Yeah.
Right.
I see it.
Where are my
Right.
self-tying laces and my hoverboards?
So yeah.
yeah.
There's just the world building is great. Then the acting is really great. There's some plot holes, but I know you really liked Caliban's death. We talked about this.
Yeah, that had a lot of like weight to it for a character we only introduced in that movie.
Yeah.
And so like you guys are talking about the having these character moments, and like we did hear a little story about how his mom was be afraid of the light always or
Yeah.
whatever. And you see the part where the guy's torturing him. He's got the light on him. That's basically it. But we still got to get a feel for this character and what he can do, what he feels. And they did say, going apart with your point, like for where did the mutants go? Did they all die? They did say that Caliban helped them previously,
down,
help
yeah.
hunt them down because he's a tracker.
Right.
And he could smell mutants and all that stuff. Like, so you take that in consideration. Like, okay, they hunted a shit ton of mutants, I'm sure, and then him helping them out, and he didn't want to, and having that kind of catharsis with himself. Okay, always feel the light, and he drops the grenade. It's like, I'm about to die, but I'm about to mess these guys up, take them with
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Right.
And I thought that was a very good arc for him.
It's a hero moment
small
for him.
amount.
Right.
Yeah.
He had a
Just
strong
every
personality,
death, just
too.
every death still hit me like it needed to hit me. There
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
Very
Wolverine's
poignant
death
moment.
was
Ugh.
incredibly hard to
The cross to the X.
watch.
I
Yeah.
think.
Yes.
That was
a
awesome.
big moment
But
there
with
at
an
the end.
action film and so many deaths, especially when you're just slaughtering all of your main characters, beloved characters, there's sort of a sense of desensitization that happens with that I did not have during
Oh,
this.
no.
Right. No.
I
I would've
didn't say like,
welcomed it.
oh, Hedwig died, so I guess I'm over all this character
Why
death.
would you bring that
Just
up?
saying- do you know what I mean, though? When you start killing all these, like, beloved characters that you loved for years, that was a moment for me that I was like, and everyone's going to die, and I'm just going to say, fine, everyone's dying. But in this, I didn't get that, because every single one was like, no. So,
Well, and that was one of
for
the interesting
example.
things about seeing it in theaters too. Is I don't know how your guys' theaters were, but everyone sat there for a little while as soon as the credits
Yeah.
started rolling, because it ends on that moment
Yeah.
where you switch the cross to the X, and everyone just kind of sat there like,
Yeah, you gotta
Yeah.
take it in for a minute.
I remember like right after,
Okay.
like when he was dying, then right when he died, like the theater was quiet as hell, but all of a sudden you had this influx of sniffling.
oh,
And it's like,
That
I
was
did
you,
not
Porter.
hear-
Yeah, that was-
I was adding to
Porter was
that.
Porter.
But
I
you
was
could-
just like-
I could hear like all of this sniffling and
Yeah.
throughout the theater that I know was not there earlier. It's like, okay, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
No, it was.
Porter's very subtle. He's just trying to
Yeah, right.
whip the single man
I'm
tear
just
away.
fixing
got
my glasses.
something in my eye, guys. Something in my eye.
Porter, you're not wearing glasses. Shut up! Shut up!
But that is a poignant ending, and we talked about this in the last video too.
Yeah.
So I feel it's important to mention it now. Two aspects, right, to the ending of that movie. The first is Laura's repeating of the scene from the movie Shane, right? There are no more guns in the valley, and it's this very important moment where she's never had to deal with this before, where she's never had to bury a loved one. She doesn't know how to do it, and all she does is just repeat what she's seen before in a moment where she had had an intimate connection with Xavier earlier in the film. And then the final shot, the cross to the X, as Walter was mentioning, right? You finally get this label where Wolverine has, in death, achieved the peace that he was looking so desperately for in life, and not being thought of as a killer and a person who hurts others, right? They had that exchange earlier in the movie where she's like, I don't want to hurt, or I don't like that they hurt me, and Wolverine says, I don't like that I hurt others. And he has finally saved and protected others and become that hero, and so she sits there and she labels him as an X-Man, right? And that, to me, put this perfect period at the end of this movie,
Definitely.
in a way that, very visually kind of striking.
Sure.
And then the kid holding the Wolverine action
Oh, that was
figure
fantastic.
too.
Yeah.
That's great.
Um,
But like with
The little
her,
kid from Hook.
yeah.
Yeah.
But like with her, him basically denying you here, oh, that's your daughter, you're her dad, and he's basically denying it the entire movie. And like when he's dying and this and that, and she never said anything about it. Like we
Right.
never knew how she felt on it.
Right.
And as soon as she says "daddy" at the end, that was it. I was
Porter's
done.
gone.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, here come the waterworks. And
Yeah.
yeah, I had like a little audible like like a sigh or whatever. And that's when my heart broke into a million pieces.
Yeah.
And it's just it was just interesting to see that character. And I hate that he died, but I'm okay with it because it worked for the movie so well. But I would love to have a whole series of movies on X-23 and Logan and their adventures.
Oh, the little team up was great.
Cautious about it, but
Yeah.
yes, I love the actress and I think she did an amazing job. Still cautious about it,
Right.
But yes,
Right.
she was amazing.
I want them to just leave it be. Just
I-
leave it be.
Right.
It was a great ending.
I
leave
wish
it
we
alone.
could have more of her because she's such a good
I think
character.
I'm pretty
So
sure we'll
such
get
a
more
great
of her.
Sure, we're gonna get more
I'm
of X-23.
pretty sure.
I mean, she
I
is.
don't know what form.
She
but
is the all-new Wolverine in the comic
Yeah.
books.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that there'll be a passing of the torch, whether the same
Yeah.
actress stays in the role
She
or
has to,
not.
or else it's not gonna.
But like a young Latinx actress, like taking on the mantle of Wolverine. What?
Yeah.
New target audience. Deal with it.
we started off in the north in Canada. Let's go in the south in Mexico. Like it's
gonna be
fine.
great.
But I just want Daphne Keene was such amazing in that.
She
so
was.
amazing in that
So
role.
good.
Though it's like if they get anybody else, no.
It's a
If
mistake.
you want to cast her as an older Laura, just wait
till
she gets older.
appropriately
Right.
ages.
Like just keep that character.
The great
she-
thing about her, well, not the one of the great things about her is how young she is and how much she's on that level with Wolverine and being like quiet and like thoughtful, and then all of a sudden yells at you.
We gotta wrap this up, guys.
Okay. All right.
We're going for a
All
very
right,
long
all
time.
right.
Very quickly, last thoughts on the movie. Heather, any quick thing you want to
It was great. Go see it.
say? Okay. Trevor?
Yes, definitely go see the movie. Definitely worth it if you're on the fence. Don't be. Go see this movie.
Okay. Ayana?
Absolutely recommend it. It is not without plot holes and without weird special effects moments, but it definitely, I think everything else in the film makes up for those and makes those things forgivable.
Okay, Porter.
As someone who hated the idea of this movie and absolutely loved it, that says a lot for this movie. So I think you should go see it. I cannot wait to see it again. I think I might be going to see it today. Like, I'm so excited for this
Right.
movie.
Yeah, it's been out for a week and a half or whatever now. So if you haven't seen it yet, if you are on the fence for whatever reason, if you haven't been convinced yet, let's see the movie. I mean, it's phenomenal. It's a great send off for Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, the character that he said that he owes his career to, and he absolutely does. I'm very interested to see where Hugh Jackman goes from here as well. So
Yeah.
I hope he does some good stuff going forward. Okay, that's it for this discussion. Very quickly, because we're so over here. Trevor, one more time, plug in your Kickstarter for us.
Yeah, no, thank you. So Albert the Alien at Kickstarter.com. Check it out. It's my next graphic novel. It's going to be 152 full-color pages about the first foreign exchange student from another planet. It's the third volume in the series, but you can pledge to get volumes 1, 2, and or 3 if you'd like to catch up. And if you do it on the Kickstarter, it still supports the project. If we hit the funding goal, right? We originally had this as a stretch goal, but if we hit the funding goal, I've gotten the green light from Doug, where we'll do like a reading of it with the comic book actually appearing on screen. We'll put it up on YouTube for free for everyone. So if you just want to kick in $5 and get early access to that, I would super appreciate it. But it's a really fun series. It's kind of a callback to the Saturday morning cartoons that I used to grow up with and really enjoyed. So
Very much polar opposite from Logan.
very, very different from the Logan movie, but I think not dissimilar from like the X-Men cartoon shows and stuff that we all grew up kind of liking and enjoying, right? It's that feeling of running downstairs in your PJs with a bowl of sugary cereal and binge watching before that was even a term, right? So. But Kickstarter.com, Albert the Alien, please check it out. It ends on March 14th, and please check it out. Really appreciate it.
All right, great. So as I said at the beginning of the episode here, this is the last episode of Awesome Comics, but don't worry, the whole cast here will be back for a expansion of the show very soon, so stay tuned for that. Thank you very much for watching Awesome Comics for this year. It's been a fun year talking about comic books and their movies and TV shows and everything. So thanks for watching, everybody. Heather, any last words?
Gosh, I don't even know. Thanks for watching, everyone. I never thought that this would be a place I would be. So thanks, Channel Awesome and
Great.
Walter
welcome.
and Jim back there.
And where can we find you on the social medias?
You can find me on Twitter at Heather Roos or Instagram at HRoos.
Okay, Porter.
Facebook.com/AwesomePorter and Twitter, PorkChop0289. And I want to say thanks. Thanks for all the feedback, all the conversations we've had. And
Yeah.
it's great. I never thought I'd do anything like this, so it's a fun time.
Right. And there's more coming, so don't worry. Ayana.
I love this. I think any of my friends who watch this show, which is all of you, you better be watching the show, know that I talk about this anyway, and so it's nice to be able to talk about this with people who know what I'm talking about as well, instead of just telling my friends, so there's this character called Batgirl, you need to look her up. Like I could go on about all this for hours and hours, and we usually do because we just really enjoy this. We enjoy talking with each other, and so this is really nice to share with you, and before
There's
we get
more
too
to come.
sappy,
It's not. This is more of a graduation.
Yeah.
Graduation. I like that.
To the next phase. Trevor.
Yeah, you can find me at Trevor A. Mueller, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Find me, follow me, friend me on there. My final words, I want to thank you guys actually for having me on the show.
Sure.
Really appreciate it. I've been on several episodes in the Nostalgia Critic, but the things that I love the most are comic books. I make comic books, I read comic books, and I love talking about comic books. So the fact that you guys have been able to invite me on the show several times and actually let me host once was very humbling, and I really appreciated it. So thank you guys.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you guys for watching once again. For everyone who's worked on the show, Nick Price, Jim J. Rise was the co-producer and creator of the show.
Backbone of the show.
Backbone, basically. Barney Walker for working sound today. Who's helped us out a lot. Everyone who's been on the show, Rob and Doug and everybody, thank you very much. We will be back, so don't worry, in a different form, but we will be back. And you can follow me on Twitter at awesome_Walter. I'll be on Top 5 every Tuesday still, so check me out on there. And remember to stay tuned to the Facebook page because we'll have updates about what's going to be happening in the future, and we'll still have reviews and stuff going up on there. So thank you very much for a great year, and we'll see you in a few weeks very soon with a new version of this show. So we'll talk to you soon, everybody, and we'll see you in the next issue. Bye, everybody.